tears away.
Away, yo. Me elevate, meditate like monkey in a shrine. Them a try jar me out, but me soul too divine. Them no understand, say me born fi lead. Me no bleed them war, me plant good seed. Every scar is a lesson, every fall is a climb. Me walk through the fire just for reshape time. Me no stoop low and me reach sky level. Me build from the dust, me dance with the rebel. Me no seek vengeance, me chant redemption. Me soul stay clean like Zion dimension. Me no keep grudge, me sip forgiveness. Me lyrics cut deep like a sword of justice.
We shall overcome the enemies. We shall win the war with love. We will break down all the barriers and wipe the tears away. Jah prepare us a table before me in the presence of my enemies. So much life I feel it on this journey. We have to prepare all the strategies. Silent river run deep like an ocean. We have to rid this world of the commotion. The people them just need a love potion. Remember that we are the chosen.
Yeah. Walk with me heart in a storm and flame. Now switch code, feed the lights of fame. Loyal to love like me owe to your name. Overcome them evil, now go play them game, yo.
We shall overcome our enemies. We shall win the war with love. We will break down all the barriers and wipe the tears away.
Yeah, mama, some man a shoe back here to them, man, just send them lights, see? Man a curse in the dark, you know. Man build for the fight, see? But I fight fire with fire, you know. But flood it with faith, see it there. Tell them love are the tool. When the world full of hate, see it?
Yes, global greetings, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Topics here on Real Entertainment Network. This is how we do it every Tuesday from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. We are a bit late this evening, but nevertheless, we're going to be here with you on another edition. I want to say good evening, Oli. I want to say good evening, Laya Miga. I want to say good evening to the rest of the entire Eastern Caribbean. And the rest of you, doesn't matter where in the world you are at this time. Could be in Russia, China, Afghanistan, Africa, wherever you are at this time. It's a pleasure to have you locked in here with us. Tonight, I have my usual host, Ras Shabazz Banky King, with us. And we have two special guests. I mean, at this point, we nearly could call them hosts, you know, because they're usually here with us on a regular, you know. Sankofa Lion, that's Sankofa Lion from Sugar City St. Kitts. And we have Ras Iroy, Pini, out of Queen City, Nevis. And we're going to be engaged on a number of topics this evening, including cannabis, agriculture, you know, what's going on in our society, but mainly the cannabis issue, as we're seeing, you know, some things that's happening in the Federation. As we look at what's going on, we really have to wonder about, you know, what is happening, what the government is doing, what the people is doing, and all of that. So you'll get an opportunity to weigh in and share your thoughts and views. The number to call this evening would be 1-869-665-8459 if you want to be a part of the program. Other than that, we will be definitely checking in with the comments on the Facebook wall, the YouTube wall, and our Twitch. So be sure to log into YouTube, log on to our YouTube platform, subscribe, like, and share, and same thing on Facebook. So, Banky, good evening. Welcome to another edition of The Topics.
Greetings, Jason, and greetings to the listening and viewing audience. Greatly appreciate you guys choosing Real Entertainment Network on another Tuesday evening. Also, good evening to our guests, Sankofa, my virgin, Ras Iroy. Sorry about the little technical difficulties where Ras Iroy is not on the screen live, but he's on the audio, and just have to put a picture for now. If everything gets started out, then you know. But let me say good evening to the folks in Oli and Layamiga, which is the ancestral name for these beautiful places. So, which if you're first time listener, is saying it's a Nevis. Also remember to subscribe and share the link as many times as possible. And also remember we still have a show on Friday, which is the Everything Agriculture show, which starts at 7, and on Tuesday is the topic at 8. So appreciate you guys choosing this network, or you could be listening any other shows, maybe 2 shows at the same time. So we appreciate that. So good evening to folks in the neighboring island, Sabre, Statia, St. Barts, the U.S. Virgin Islands, the BVI, folks over in Montserrat, Antigua and Barbuda, and the folks through the Les Antilles and the Windward Island also. Also the folks in the diaspora, North America, from the Florida Keys all up to Maine, Atlanta, Texas, Miami, Chicago, wherever you're at in the US and in Canada, also the folks over in Europe, in different time zone, England, and over to Africa, Asia. We have people all over, and also the folks studying Costa Rica. Appreciate you guys tuning in. So whichever is appropriate, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Also, we probably have some folks over in Indonesia listening. So really appreciate you guys choosing this network. Shows that you really engage and really like what we're dealing with. And so really appreciate that. And those when they see me, let me know we'll be listening and stuff like that. So really appreciate you guys making this show going on for like 5 years. We've been doing this. So we appreciate your consistency and showing the love. So yes, son, looking forward for the reasoning this evening.
Yes, as we give an opportunity for Ras Sankofa to give his opening remarks and introduce himself to the public. I know you've been here, Sankofa, but one of the things is every time we log on, we do have new listeners and new people. So as much as maybe those who are accustomed to hear you would know who you are, you give the listening public an opportunity to know who is Sankofa. And then we will do the same for Ras Iroy, and then we'll get into some of the topics. So just your opening remarks.
Yes, I would give thanks for the invitation by Banky and Tafara still. And we give thanks for the opportunity to be part of such a high esteemed panel, with the elder dear Ras Iroy, Banky, and of course we have Yasser and Tafara there. In the NCM. My name is Ras Sankofa. I'm based at Amasaya Maccabi still. And I just here to really reason on the herb, the natural plant that the Most High created that was supposed to help us to grow spiritually. But man has intervened and created a demonic plague around us with the herb. So now we're trying to set the whole thing free once and for all. Free. And forever be free. Herb will always be free because it was created by the Most High and not man. Yeah.
All right. Global greetings, Ras Iroy. Good evening. Ras Iroy. Like we still have a little bit of difficulty with Ras Iroy. Some technical challenges as we go through, but nevertheless, we will hope that we get that rectified as the show continues. So, Sankofa, I am really happy that we have you on the platform with us this evening, because I know sometimes you don't necessarily like to take the credit for it, but I want to think that you are one of the persons who are responsible for us at this point being where we are on the journey with the cannabis, because it was your case that sort of forced the government to take some actions within the time frame that they were forced to, as they had 90 days, according to the judge, to really do something about what your case presented. We would have gone through that, and would have seen technically some laws seemingly change on the books, so to speak. But then when we look at certain things on the ground, there's seemingly some difficulty and some challenges where that is concerned. So, I mean, you're on the ground and have been on the ground. you know the case more than anybody else would. Based on what your case would have created, what are we seeing? What are we seeing? Today in St. Kitts and Nevis. Do you think that you're seeing or getting the justice? Maybe not you personally, but in terms of what's happening with the cannabis industry. But what's your feedback so far on what has happened since your case?
Yes, since my case, I don't know nobody ever went back to jail for marijuana since my case. But for sure, people being locked up and asked to pay fines and all these things still. So even just that in respect to that aspect is an improvement in that respect there, because the reality, I went to jail for marijuana. And I know many other persons in the past went to jail for marijuana. So at least I think my case have helped in that respect there. We ain't seeing much people go to jail, but we still seeing people actually get arrested for marijuana and asked to pay big fines for marijuana as well. So in that respect there now, I don't see that was supposed to be possible anymore. Because if we're saying that we're going in forward towards legalization, and we still have all these policies left to decriminalize the herb, moving from one status to another status, rather than just do the right thing, which is just legalize the whole thing so that all of us can benefit equally. When you put it in different, like for now, with our case, Rastas have more benefit than the regular public in certain aspects
Right.
because of the sacramental. And I still personally don't feel that it should be like that, even though we did suffer for it back in the days. I think all of us is human beings. And if this thing is supposed to be free for all of us, for who want to use it. Yes, we've been through more tribulation than any other group in dealing with the herbs still. But the reality, all of us is still humans. We created from the earth, the dust, the air, the water, everything, the fire. So I don't feel like because we Rasta, we push the energy towards the herb, we should get any exclusive status in the sense that we are the one responsible for this thing, really. The Almighties who create the plant, all we're doing is fighting for the right to have and use the plant the way that we want to. Now, in saying that, dear, what you're going to end up finding is a lot of people even faking to be a Rasta just to use a herb. You see it? But if it was free for all, then they wouldn't even have to do that. They would just be themselves. So my thing is to get it to panda level there where the herb is just legal now, because with the latter, even if we win the case, there's still too much rules and regulations surrounding the herb in this decriminalization state. So it become almost like a trick. You see how the Attorney General talk is not clear sometimes, because it's too much tricky language still that will put us in situations where we're not able to have the amount of herb that we're supposed to. As I said, because of my case with Rasta for Sacramental, we can have as much, but then I can still go with a bag of herb, jump on a plane and go somewhere with it. I can't go with a bag of herb to Nevis and have like a pound of herb on me and going over to Nevis. They still can lock me up, sacramental or not sacramental, because I don't have to prove that my movement is sacramental. So it's still too much rules and regulations surrounding the herb. We want to be able to move pounds of herbs and be able to receive pounds of herbs, because herb can be used for so much things. It's not just a smoking issue. So if we only could move a small bit of herb and use a smoker, of course you're only going to use the herb for your personal use. You see it? They haven't freed it up where we can use the herb and make economics from the herb just like that. So what we do is just that we still do our thing, because it's free enough for that. Like I make oils, I make soaps, and we get them sell. So while I don't get much money just the raw herb like how we used to in the past, we're still benefiting from the herb, and we're getting to help a lot of people who are sick. There's a lot of people who believe in our oils, who actually have cancer, and they're making claims that our oil's keeping them living longer, and they tried everything else. They done went through chemo, almost dead, and it's we oils them keeping them alive. These are what they're telling us. So nothing better than to hear that they're from your own people, that whatever you're giving, the cannabis itself is still being used regardless to whatever laws that the system have. We're still using the cannabis to help and to protect and share with our people. See, we're getting results. So it's not sometimes all the time about the money with the cannabis. It's about the power of the plant and what the plant can do and how it can help so much people in the community with so many diseases that they have. So it becomes like a miracle plant, so. And I think that's what they was hiding the plant for. They wanted to make all these millions of dollars from the plant while we have it illegal. But on an easy scale now, they're making the millions. And another thing is, you realize that America knows allowing them to change the schedule for the drug from a drug where is deadly and dangerous, like cocaine and marijuana was scheduled with them there. So now they want to change the schedule to, I think it's a Schedule 2, which is good for medical. They're only doing that there for the medical industry. They're not doing it because they honestly want the herb to be in a different schedule. Because if they wanted to do that, they could have do it on their own without America. But everybody has to follow on America in the decriminalization process, while there's states in America that have herb legal.
Well, but Sankofa,
So,
in reality, when we look at cannabis, right? And the argument presented for medicinal cannabis, I keep saying that it is hypocrisy, and maybe that is one of the reasons too why they're seeking to make that change. Because if you're supposed to look at the definition of a Schedule 1 drug, the definition states that it has no accepted medicinal use or purpose. So
exactly.
that is what they use to criminalize cannabis. So in their definition, they stated that it is a substance or chemical that is deemed to have no accepted medicinal use or purpose and could be highly addictive. That is, in a nutshell, what a Schedule 1 drug
Schedule
is.
1 was.
And they place cannabis in that category. It so happened that cannabis was the only plant that is in that category. So it was like a red apple between a box of orange. Because in there you'd have had like, things like heroin and PCP and all these other synthetic drugs that are made by men. And then you have cannabis, which is a plant, which is not a substance or chemical, but was also defined in that way. So to me, that is a great step that they're actually seeking to remove that lie, because that was and is one of the greatest hypocrisy, because you're saying it is a Schedule 1 drug, but yet at the same time, you're seeking to decriminalize it on the basis that it has medicinal use or purpose. So which means that's a blatant lie you're selling all these years.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
As I hear you said that, I could see that they're doing it really because they want to use it in the medical scheme. But I think it is important that we point out that level of hypocrisy that has been going on for a number of years. And also, if they keep it in that category as a Schedule 1, which is a criminalized substance, then you can't do no business, because the banks and so on would still see it that way, and it will be very difficult for it to be, utilized in the way in which they would want to use it at this time. So you're right with your point there, that is one of the reasons why they do it, so that they can do business with it. But I just wanted to highlight that aspect. Sankofa, what is really going on? Because I have been, in the past couple of weeks, months, talking to people and feeling the energy here on the island. And one of the things that I keep pointing out to people, that you never took the government to courts on no basis of medicinal cannabis. You took them to court on the basis of recreational and sorry, not recreational, but personal use and religious or sacramental use. Now, what we see happening here on St. Kitts and Nevis is that even though those were the main two areas that you took the government to court on and that the case was based on, the government have sought to hijack the medical cannabis issue, and that is the area that they have been pushing. They have sought to push the areas that you would have took them to court for, put them under the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs, which is headed by the Honorable Jeffrey Hanley. And we have never heard anything from Jeffrey Hanley in that regards. And we, the people, are still lost as to where to go and get the license for the 56 grams, where to get the license for the 5 trees, and if you want to set up a lounge and so on. All of that is under that ministry. But that ministry is not ready yet to give any license or to do anything with anybody. So part of the problem that I am seeing here is that here is it, you went ahead in the House and you passed this bill. But in terms of putting your regulations together, you have not. But as a result, now we the people have to suffer. So we are still getting locked up. People still pulling up your trees, and people are still being arrested. While you can't go to the government to get a license right now. You can't go to get a license for your 56 gram. You can't go to get that for your 5 trees or 6 trees. And you can get, because they are not ready. So don't you think that we have a strong argument for a moratorium, asking for the government to put together a moratorium in the interim, since they are the ones who are not ready and they would have had years to do this? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a moratorium is good, because that should have been in place right after the judge gave a judgment, until they sorted it out properly. And they never did that. We did ask for it. Or are you asked for that? Or are you also asked for a replenishing same as still, what we call reparations towards the herb, as well too as the organization. When I say ORU, I'm talking about the organization of Rastafari in Unity, of which Iroy is the president. And we have asked that. But what we didn't do was we didn't bring forward a class action suit against the government, where persons in the past who was harassed, persons who was actually locked up for harm, who was Rastas, and even non-Rasta, but still believe in the, when I say non-Rasta, they don't have locks, but they still believe in the king. So they Rasta, but they don't have locks. We can put a class action suit against the government, especially because the government backdated the judgment to 2012. So persons who was arrested as Rasta, and even non-Rasta who had a certain amount in their house that wasn't an exorbitant amount and what's not, they can actually make a claim to law. And if we threaten the government with this and be serious with it, you'll see how quick everything simmer down. Because the monies that they're going to have to pay out to us, it's going to make them cool themselves down. So I think that openly we have to just strategize for them, man. I wasn't going to draw this card because I don't want to bankrupt the government. But at the same time, we cannot have the government keep doing these things to us. But if you get even just 10, 15 men with a class action suit, each man calling for $1 million or $750,000, for some cases it's worth that, because they had men who did 18 months in jail. 18 months I only did 3 months in jail and I get 15,000 for that. So work out the maths with 18 months. You see it? And many people did 18 months, which was the kind of like the maximum they was given at that time there for a marijuana charge. Regardless, you know, and still some certain persons was fined. So they would have to get back the money that they paid, at least for the fine, and still some money for the pain and suffering same way still. So there is that possibility there left for a class action suit against the government if they don't set themselves in order properly. And we shouldn't do it as just a threat. We need to get a lawyer to start to work on something like that. And then negotiate with the government. Because if you put a class action suit against the government, knowing that most likely they will lose, they automatically have to come back to the table. They have to automatically come back to the table. We shouldn't have to reach there because we were supposed to done pass all that stages. But as I say, man children still get pulled up. And because of that, you know, we have to think another strategy. Yes, we can go back and march as well too. And I'm not saying that's not a good strategy. But this other strategy here, you're going to hit them harder than marching because now we're going straight to the government pocket. You see it? So I tell the people, I done had a couple of bridges who was willing to actually take that way there. And we might have to consider getting a lawyer because I am not a lawyer, so I can't represent others. I only can represent myself. So we will have to get a lawyer who will be willing. And we approach a couple of lawyers, but most of them running from it. Even the big one that everybody thought would just be happy for such a case. I ain't gonna call the name and here right now. But later on, another time I might have to call them and name because they can't hide under acting like they're for Rasta. And then when time comes for deal with Rasta things, they like they're afraid to talk on our behalf. So, and it's not just a Rasta thing, because there was many persons who was non-Rasta, and based on how the law came for privacy, they still have that right. And then we have to remember there was another thing in the case that we don't ever talk about. It's all three areas I want in my case. And there was a part where I charged him with, you know, it was a section 9 matter, where it's an illegal search and seizure. And my argument was basically this. If we wasn't Rasta and if we wasn't if herb wasn't illegal, then you wouldn't really have no legitimate reason to search my residence. So if I could prove to I that herb should have never been legal, then I would have been breaking the aspect of the law as well all the time. Because the only reason they was coming to us, even though, you know, they're going to have the big long talk or drugs, ammunition, guns and whatever. They know we don't have no guns. They know we're not going to have ammunition. It's just the drugs they was using to come to enter our house. But so according to what the judge said, is if you're only going to his house just for marijuana, and now marijuana has been decriminalized to a level, then that law there, then we're being illegally searched. You understand what I'm saying? Because you know you really, and your warrant is really marijuana you're coming for. You're only utilizing these other terms just because, but for me, the police, them tell me directly, they know that I have marijuana on premises, and that's what they come for. They say they don't know me to be any gunman or anything like that. So I use that argument there too, and the judge agreed with me, basically saying that a lot of us being illegally searched and seized with the things that they found in our home. So the judge gave us full confidence with that ain't supposed to happen to us, meaning that they can't enter our house anymore to say they're just coming in for marijuana. So as Rasta, as bald-head, they really can't come in our house just for marijuana based on the judgment. But you have to be wise and understand the judgment. And sometimes the lie them don't come and explain the judgment to the public properly. But the judge, the police, them cannot really just come in our house and search for marijuana just like that. You see, even though they decriminalize it, because the judge already tell them that's not the right thing to do. We have to allow them to have a certain amount of marijuana for them to deal with whatever they have to do, especially in their privacy. And when they're coming for us, is in the privacy of our home. So we have to just really be strong enough to explain our case too. And when we do get lawyers, sometimes the lawyers, them ain't studying the case them properly. So you have to encourage them to look at certain other cases. And when they're going to defend our cause, look at the judgment of the judge. You can't just look at what the parliament say. And the judge also show them that whatever the parliament decide have to be in line with my judgment. So they can't contradict. Like you were saying, they've been contradicting that for years. But legally they can't contradict the judgment. Even if they put certain laws, what they did know, because the Attorney General is very bright, I should say dull, because he used a lot of trick. I should say dull, he's not really bright, because bright, you're going to do the right thing. Bright come with right. Them and they kind of dull. They use trickery in the way that they write the things them, making it seem like they fully with the court order. And that's why they gave the exemption towards Rastafari, because it's sacramental. And the privacy for our citizens, they try to put an amount towards it, but the judge didn't ask them to put an amount to that. Now, to move publicly, these are the areas now where they had opportunity to do certain things. And that's where they decided to put an amount. They wanted to give us 15 grams, which we basically almost had 15 grams already, because it's anything over 15 grams is when they would say that you would have been selling weed. You know, anything under that there, sometimes it was all right to even have a split for on us. It wasn't so illegal like how we thought. You know, you just had to be willing to argue your case in court. But then when they find you with an exorbitant amount, so they put it up to 2 ounces for us as Rasta and for the general public. So that's a benefit we can't deny, from 15 grams to 2 ounces to be able to move around. That is a benefit. But it's not what we want. We want it to be free. We want to, like when I check Banky and I sit down and I want to go reason with Banky, and I want to be able to carry a pound of weed over to Banky Nevis so he could hustle it and we just share up the profits. We want to be able to trade our weed straight up, and we still want to be able to utilize herb. If they say not give the weed to the little children, I think we could just be obedient to that, because it's other people's children you're dealing with and they might not want their youth to be smoking or using herb. But when it comes to adults, we should be able to be more free in dealing with the herb. And I'm very free with dealing with the herb. I plant the trees in my yard, and sometimes I got more than the amount, and sometimes I got less than the amount because I'm not study. And in the mountain, they don't come and bother us. So for me personally, it has been a very free time for me. But I realize other persons don't really have that freedom. I guess maybe it's how they want to do it too. Some people want to just showcase the thing up and down the place like that. And, you know, I don't fault them because maybe they're happy, you know, but you still have to be wise in dealing with it, because the system has put other rules and regulations where we're not challenging them. So they're there still. But we can challenge them by either marching, or we could challenge them by putting a class action suit, and we can challenge them like doing what we're doing now, letting the public know that we didn't agree to certain things, you know, and it's like they still put it. So regardless, we only could do what we did. We had consultation with all the governments, and with Unity, we have with Labour, with the man from Nevis. And the reality, Nevis ain't doing nothing because your Prime Minister, he not like the herb neither. He gonna come and try to blame it and sink it, but the reality, It's a local government he have running over there, you know. If he decide to change the hub and put it in a different category and do whatever, it's just gonna pressure them man from St. Kitts to just upgrade. He always using an excuse about St. Kitts when it's feasible. But the reality, Bradley, them not like the hub. Dougie, them not like the hub. I can't say Joe ain't like the hub. But I could surely say them man and Jeffrey, them man never ever like the hub because I know him from a long time. So you're having people going against the judgment just because their personal choice. They feel like the hub is bad and they still feel like he affecting the children them in a bad way. So there's that fear there still on the public. Ain't much we could do about that there, but only thing that could change that there is if we bring up our youth them in a way that don't fight against the herb and if they do use herb, they maintain a good order because the reality is there's a lot of people using herb and using other substances and it making it look like the herb doing bad. But if they study these individuals, they'll realize that they're not just using herbs. Some of them drinking alcohol, some of them smoking coke, some of them smoking crack, some of them, you know, so we have to be able to teach the people them the benefits of the herb without having this fear mongering.
So, okay, but Sankofa, I heard you made a comment a while ago and you said some of these guys hate the herb and they don't like the herb and but here is the issue that we have. Though some of these people may not necessarily like the herb and me and you might know that and they are demonstrating it at this point to the detriment of the masses, because here is it that some of these things have already been passed as law in the House of Parliament. Here is it that some of these guys have these things on their portfolio. So which means right now they are robbing the people. Because if you're telling me that this thing has become a part of your portfolio, like in the case of the Honorable Jeffrey Hanley, if ecclesiastic affairs is part of his portfolio and recreational or personal use of cannabis and spiritual or religious use of cannabis is under his ministry and under his portfolio, it means that he is being paid to ensure that these things are dealt with. So if he's not dealing with them, then he is robbing the people. And I'm saying this because I saw a comment earlier on the platform, on the forum that said, the government is the people and the people is the government. This is something we have to be mindful of. So in the government, in a class action suit is folly, but lobbying and petition is prudent. Now, this is a comment from somebody who was listening when you were talking about the class action suit and so on. And I get the point that the person is making, but here is it on the other end. We are supposed to, because technically we the masses are the government and we elect some people to represent us. We usually look at those people who we elect to represent us as the government, so to speak. Now, they are being paid by us, the taxpayers. So when you put him there, like in Nevis' case, where we have the Minister of Agriculture, who is the minister responsible for the medicinal side, not doing anything, not saying anything similar to that minister in St. Kitts, who is not saying anything about the recreational and religious side. They both are being paid by us, the taxpayers, to deal with this. And they are part of why we are having the problems that we are having today. Because they are not doing their work. They have not put the legislations together. They are not rolling out the regulations in a timely enough manner. And thus we are having the problems that we are having now. Because if you are supposed to go right now, I mean, you might not have to go because you're Rastafari, but the general public, because I think Banky would have attempted to call the office on St. Kitts to get information in relation to the 56 grams, the 5 trees and all that. And when he called, they didn't even have a meeting as yet. Mr. Hanley would not have even had a meeting with his staff in relation to this. And even on the medical side, from what I have been reliably told by people and syndicates, when you go to the medical cannabis office, the people who are there are just giving you information based on the pamphlet that they have in terms of what steps and going forward and so on. They really don't know. So is it some kind of Ponzi scheme or something that is being worked out? I mean, but we the masses have to begin to hold these people accountable. So we can't, like how you're saying, you're afraid to because you're gonna bank up the government. You can't bank up the government. You can't bank up the government. And they, for what they would have been doing to us for over all these years, they deserve paying back whatever it is. So we can't stop here. Because look at it. The laws would have been passed. And they're still allowing, they could stop the police from doing whatever, you know, because they can tell them, because 3 arms of government. You have the executive, you have the judiciary, and you have the legislative. Just like how they turn in a blind eye to Hammond, so to speak. The same thing can be done in relation to cannabis until they get themselves sorted out. But they are not opting to do that. They are still harassing people and causing them to take and charging money, because for them is a money-making business still. That is another reason why they focus, and I thought the Premier said it the other night, the reason why they saw cannabis the way they saw it as a means of additional revenue generation. So that is one of the reasons why they focus on the medicinal side, because from that side, they see how they could make money and have put real issues that would have taken to court, take them to court for on the back burner. So, but we, the public, are sitting back. Many of us, I mean, sitting back and not necessarily speaking up and speaking out. So like the Virgin spoke to the lobbying and the petitions and so on. I think we need to use those as well. I don't totally agree with him in the sense of, you know, taking the class action suit is a folly. I don't totally agree with that. But I would agree also that we need to use these other measures as well in terms of petitions and lobbying. So
I would agree to petition and lobby, but we've been doing that the early while. Or are you been doing that the early while? Early while, and they never study us. It's only when you reach in the court they have to study you, because you're actually making a claim. So they have to study you. You could petition all you want. If they don't want to study you, they just not study you. But once you make a class action, you're going towards the court. So the court have to deal with the matter. So you're automatically going to get studied. You're automatically going to get studied. You have to get studied. Because everyone have the right. If they believe that they're being infringed, their rights are being infringed, they could actually put a suit towards the person who infringed their rights. It doesn't have to be government. It could be even anybody who call your name wrongfully in something. You could put a suit against them. You see it? So to protect your name. So sometimes you have to threaten with these and take these measures in order to get them to humble themselves. Because if you tried everything else and you ain't getting through, then you would have to I agree with the person. It's almost like we're suing myself, because the people are supposed to technically be the government. But if the government is not acting right, you have to put them in line. And sometimes you have to use different technique. As I said earlier too, if you listen to me, I didn't want to draw this card for none of the government. This is probably the second time I'm reasoning this on here. And it's only because when your back is against the wall and the people them can't do nothing else, but because I wouldn't go to the government again, because I got my pension and my gratuity. I ain't even get much from the government. I gonna tell her it's $30,000 the man give me for that big stinking case. You see it? And I never went back for more, because my case wasn't about money. It was about to get the thing free up to a level that we can actually survive. And I think now we can. There's so much people making thousands of dollars from herb as we speak still. Just because the thing free up to, because they have no fear in the amount that they plant, because police now really go up in on a mountain like people attack and I go look for people herb and I bring them down. They're not really they're not doing it in SK. The picture the IDMC was an old picture. It is like a burning up herb. I think our government here in St. Kitts has put something in place to help secure not too much of that happening. And I can't speak for them, but from on the ground, you could see there's people building mansions now off our hub again. We used to do it in the past, and now we're doing it again because now the availability there to make. And there's some of us, because we don't have no links and we don't have the good grades, ain't making nothing from it. Because we stuck in an old system, but them grades, the way you got, bring them to me, 'cause I love them old-time grades, because that's why I do make my oil with. That is what the oil, the organic, regular old-time weed is what will heal people with cancer and all kind of disease. Parkinson disease, your hand shaking, and you take one puff of the herb, and your hand stop shaking one time. Which drug they got for Parkinson can do that? It's the drugs them that got in ganja. The only ones that can do that is the ones that were having herb. You see it? So we don't have nothing to worry about. We just have to do what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make medicine from herb, and we're supposed to also be able to make money from herb. Not just with medicine, just because people like to use herb. So even just raw cash from the actual trade. And we're going to be approaching, Leonard Bridgen going to be approaching the CMO. He want to bring in some things that he had out there that he created, and he's from St. Kitts. And he want to bring them in the Federation, you know? And we want to go and put a challenge to her. Because there's another thing that we have to understand. The CMO always had the right to have any amount of herb that she wanted to. Because it's in the law. When I was doing my case and I was studying the law, I realized that in the law all the time still too. So if we wanted to deal with anything with the herb, we could have always go to the CMO, write a letter if we were sick and we wanted to use a particular strain of herb or herb in general to help with our sickness. We always had the right to go to the CMO and just write a letter and ask her if we could have just utilized this for this, you know, and then it wouldn't have been illegal for us to have it because she had that ability to give it to us every time. It never came off the books. It's still on the books. She can run cocaine too, meaning that she can have any amount of cocaine that she wants. You know? So she could do it for testing and for other things. The law have it available for that. Read the whole law and you'll understand the depths of her work. So we're going to check her and see what she said. If we're going to be able to bring what we want to bring into the Federation. It's not going to affect the things that we have because it's not my business. It's a next virgin business. But nobody doing the business what he's going to be doing in St. Kitts yet. So it's not going to affect us. Maybe it might encourage us to start to do some of the business. And here's the other hypocrisy. There's so much people doing legal business in St. Kitts from home. But when I say legal, advertising, have their products with the cannabis on the bottle. And my oil is a big weed cannabis thing, and we tell them the ingredients, cannabis flowers and bush. And no Babylon come trouble, are we? We gotta be realistic. This thing more legal than we acting like it is not legal. Because we can do a lot of things, we can make a lot of money from the herb. Once we ain't killing nobody and we know herb can't kill nobody. We can run business with herb right now. We don't have to wait for no CMO. We don't have to wait for no drug laws. We don't have to wait for no cannabis committee. Because as you could see, the cannabis committee never started because they don't really in their heart want to do it. You know, if they had wanted to do it from their heart, they would have do this thing. It done gone. Since 2019, he just make the judgment. And we in 2005. That's 6 years. It's going on 7 years. So let's be realistic. We can't just wait upon them. Just work. They got people who are infused cannabis with alcohol and I make big money off of that. I don't agree to that. I'm not into that either. 'Cause I don't believe in mixing herb with alcohol. But some people do it. Some people do it to draw the herb out too. You know, so I'm not saying I'm against it fully either. But to just mix it with alcohol just to drink, sometimes it could have a cross effect because the herb have this real good positive thing and then the alcohol have a tie up in it because it's still alcohol. But then you have other men who have roll spliff advertising as part of their business, who have products. We have products that we advertise regular to the internet, to wherever, and we get the things themselves. We have soaps, we have infused oils, you know, we got body wash, you know, which is also still like a soap, same as still. And they have a system over there with some herb and in Nevis that we buy from, and she have a nice shampoo, and herbs is part of the ingredients. And it been like that for a while. So I think that we just have to just continue doing what we're doing until they're ready, because remember, we can't make them ready, you know, as much pressure as we put on them. They're only going to release this thing when they're ready, you know. But if they're giving us the opportunity for us to set ourselves, I think we should set ourselves. And I think that that's what Rasta is not doing. We're not setting ourselves with a proper industry. We should have done as together as Rasta, we should have done have a proper industry. I was in the position for that day. I gave many ideas, but yet we still haven't really come together to take one particular industry in the herb and just make it a grand thing. We don't have to do all the industries because they have the seeds, they have the tinctures you can make oils, you can make so many different things from the herb. We just choose one and make a big industry with it. And I think we'll go forward, we'll come a long way.
Well, you know, Sankofa, as I listen to you, I realize also that one of the things that may be slightly different in relation to all other things that I'm seeing is the fact that you are Rastafari and there are special provisions that are being made for Rastafari community. So seemingly there might be some special preferences where Rastafari is concerned. The issue that we are seeing does at this point, you know, a lot of the different cases that I am seeing does not necessarily, seemingly, it's not seemingly Rastafari who are being challenged. But Banky, as I'm listening here, and I listen to Sankofa and St. Kitts, I wonder, you know, if we really have a federation or we do have, you know, one government and St. Kitts and we have a whole totally different government and Nevis. I would want you to weigh in a little bit. And I see he tried a shot there at Ras Iroy, but Ras Iroy in here. I'm sure, Ras Iroy, you here yet? No? So I guess we ain't got Ras Iroy. I didn't mean you literally trash up, but I mean when you made the comment about the commissioners, because remember Ras Iroy.
I mean, here all the time.
Well, we were trying to get your attention a bit earlier, but you never responded. So that's why we kind of continue the conversation. Well, since you're here, maybe you could respond to that shot. But before you do, let me just get
Me no show no shot, you know, so I can't shot my virgin. So no come with that tag, you know, and I straighten out that one thing, you know. So anyway, you know, me no show no shot. Me talk truth. Alright, they with us all the time. I hear the leader, hear the head. Oh, me gonna lick off the head, man. Come on, Tapa. No shot, no call it no shot, man.
That's all right. Before you comment, that's all right. Let me just drop you these couple comments at the wall. We have Shai Dinner saying big up to the Indians from India that brought the ganja and dread. Anyone on the panel still hold the original 70s lamb's bread, or has it been lost? Brotherhood of eternal love. And then we have Mighty Servant saying we have to move from the them and us and start realizing as taxpayers they work for us. And we should start to ensure that the so-called system work for us as it works for others. Great point. Dinner says 90% of the herb grown outdoors fails testing. We got to do better. Mighty Servant
That because they
says,
use chemical. It's not because of just the air quality. So when people say these things, they got to add more to them kind of talk there. That's a tricky talk. That's a very, very tricky talk.
The last comment we have here says, Yasan rightfully mentioned that there are three arms of government. Here in SKN, the legislature is also the executive, but the judiciary, courts is also government. Utilize the system for our benefits. So technically they're saying, yes, we got three arms of government, the courts is one, and we should utilize that arm of government if necessary. Ras Iroy, as I said, we were having the conversation because when we tried to reach out to you at that point, we did, try to call you in, but you didn't respond. So we thought that you had dropped out. Yes, so you can now weigh in on some of the discussion so far. Banky, I'll get back to you because we have the guests, so I'll let the guests respond. So talk to us. That's all right.
There was so much being said. I don't know where you want me to start.
Okay,
But-
well, start on the commission because you're on the commission right now. Sankofa is talking about St. Kitts and some of the things that's happening on St. Kitts, and well, you live on Nevis and you see and know what's happening here. We are seeing some cases where people are, being charged and all kind of thing, and you really make you wonder if cannabis is decriminalized or things are still the same way it is. It's totally different, seemingly a totally different ball game taking place on St. Kitts.
Well, first, let me officially.
You're breaking up. That's all right. If you said anything, the only thing we heard is that you said, let me officially, and that was it. Yeah, we're having a little technical difficulty with Ras Iroy.
A little?
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulty with Ras Iroy in the background. So when he comes back, when he comes back, he gets back in, we will let him weigh in on the discussion. We got another comment here. When Sankofa won the case, why wasn't a monetary amount attached, as in a class action suit? Why wasn't a suit brought up against the government? A civil suit, brought up against the government. So that's a question somebody's asking. So let me repeat it again. He said when Sankofa won the case,
My case was.
Right.
What happened with my case, right? I just brought up a case to prove that the government itself was not upholding the constitutional properly. So my case was more of a constitutional case, which is still a civil case. And I did put in for an amount of monies within my case. But I didn't give a specific amount, but I did say there was damages, but I didn't argue for my damages properly because remember I wasn't really a liar and I had to end up represent myself, and so it could have been a fault of my one why I didn't really get more money, but it wasn't just about the money for me. I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't even studying that part then. I was trying to just secure my job. Because you're gonna get fired from your job if you lose the case, and then you hold gratuity and pension, go down the drain. So at least I secured that, and that was a big thing for me. That's why I resigned one time. I eat a good food with that. But the other part now, the judge make it realizing that he made an error, but because I didn't mention it to him when he put in the judgment, I didn't when we was in court now, I didn't stand up and sing, but I stood up at the end of the court, but he had already went in the chambers. So what he did is like, when we went in the chambers now, he was saying that damages wasn't on top of the thing. So I pulled my file and I showed him directly where I requested damages. And he's like, wow. You know? So he said to the government, he gonna leave it up to us to amicably deal with the brethren properly because he represented and he did have it and damages and costs and all that there. So we have to sit down amicably now because it's gonna hard for him to go and rewrite his judgment. You know, it's almost like we'd have to go do a separate case so that they all together again. And I didn't want to go through that because technically I would be almost like appealing my case. And how are you going to appeal a victory? So me just like go through with that energy there still, and then we went and we negotiated with the government. I asked them only for 77,000. I wanted the 2 sevens to clash. And they ended up giving me 30,000. So I lose up on 47,000. And I didn't feel bad because it's like all that they included was really, I'm going to be honest, I want to be fair to everybody and so they could understand it, because people be going around thinking I make this big money, you know. But it wasn't so. $15,000 was basically for my month in jail because I only did a month in jail. I was supposed to do another 2 months, but I paid $5,000, and the $5,000 was basically they giving me back the money I paid for to stay out of jail for them 2 years. So all I really make half of the case was my lawyer fee, which was $10,000. That's it. So people feel like I did this for money. It was no money involved in this. The money was that I secured was my gratuity and pension. Yes, because I win the case.
Yes,
and that was a good amount of money. Me not talk about that. That's my personal business. But everything else, I just let the public know.
Give thanks.
Oh, yeah.
So we got Ras Iroy back on screen. So yes, Ras Iroy, talk to us. You got the
Boy,
floor.
I don't even know where I get cut off.
Well,
I don't even know how much.
It's in the introduction, you know. You just when you started to talk, you got cut off. So you could just
Boy, I said
weigh in now. Yeah, you could just weigh in now and say what you have to say at this point before you get cut off again.
I think you don't know, man. You know, said right.
Yeah, something is wrong with your system.
They don't want you to talk tonight, you know, I mean, I don't know who, but somebody don't want you to talk tonight.
Yeah.
Alright, you know, we hear you. Something
Turn off your
in your face.
Your mic.
But maybe if we mute our mic them.
Usually when you just need an indication that I didn't hear it. Yeah, son.
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Okay. Well, as I say, I said quite a mouthful, not realizing that I was not online. But I was just basically saying too that I do agree that with
Yeah, man, you're going in and out. The last thing we hear is we do agree, and then we ain't hear nothing again from we do agree. So I don't know. You're gonna have to get that adjusted and sorted out. But we're really looking forward to hear from your perspective. But in the meantime, Banky, after listening to Sankofa, because you have been really quiet here, what's happening in Nevis? Because I mean,
Well, Well, first, I mean, once we're going to talk about ganja, I just got to bring in the late Terry Adams, the custom officer. He was a big advocate for that. He always letting them know no one should be charged for ganja, and he had reached up to the third rank in the custom the custom exercise department. And for a veteran like Terry to be an advocate because he is saying is a plant, and which in it lies within the constitution in a sense when it comes to privacy and the use and all the difference. And now you have seen the government went and put an act where it now is the plant is non-poisonous. So you see different things were put in place now because all these move towards because of the medical cannabis that they move towards. But then, as you mentioned earlier, with the ecclesiastic part of it, where Mr. Jeffrey Hanley, when they call the office, he not even had a conversation with his staff. You see what I mean? Not even a conversation. So you have an office, not even have a paperwork, even and paper, and a discussion with the staff. So what do you expect? This whole thing is a joke, my virgin. And then go to somebody who fight against herb in that office to ask for a license to plant 5 trees or 6 trees. Well, this thing, if something is non-poisonous, well, banana is non-poisonous. Everything on my farm is non-poisonous. Me don't need a license for that. So why would I need a license for you to tell me to grow 5 trees, and then nothing is in place? So let's say you give me the license to grow 5 trees. When I go to 5 trees or the 6 trees, then you come to my house, you say, well, we got too much of weed. Because you see what I mean? I mean, this thing don't make no sense, this thing don't make no sense. And when something don't make no sense, me don't take it on, That's me tell the man, then plant your herb. When Babylon come on your place, take out your phone, let them know they're infringing on your rights, the right for privacy and all this different stuff, and the Sankofa case. Mention it, and then you ask them their name, the officer, their badge number, and all these things. Ask them for the search warrant. If they can't present these things, if they have a search warrant, you record everything. Record these things. You can't have Babylon come in your place and not record it, because you have rights. You see, the herb, you just had the premier here on the show Friday, and he's speaking all kind of stuff. He for the legalization and all kind of something. But me don't brand the premier to be the Minister of Agriculture. So if he is the Minister of Agriculture, he's supposed to be pushing, because he was a part of the TN Unity government when all this thing was taking place. You see? And then you have a Minister of Agriculture going to tell a caller, saying it's moving ahead, so they're going to follow. I mean, we don't know what they mean. But what they mean, you're going to follow. So you're blind, so you're going to hold, so you're going to hold your hand, and we think you walk over the cliff, you're going over the cliff. That's why I went and asked the premier, does Navis have their own autonomy over agriculture? Because we have to get Patrice Nisbet and this I would probably get him on the show, because all this thing, which Navis have his own autonomy. So Navis, if they don't want to deal with herb, they don't have to deal with herb. You see? That you have people in position that they have a portfolio where they're supposed to represent the people, but they take their personal belief system, whatever it is, we not try to figure it out. Because in 2023, when the agriculture opened, I didn't want to take part. 2024, I didn't take part this year. Agriculture opened in 2024. If it was not for the premier, the minister himself would have fight for me to have a booth in the agriculture openly. That's just how his personal way is. Everybody have their own, and when you start to take your personal issues upon the general public, that is the minister. So why take even the portfolio? Just tell whoever in charge above you, you don't want those portfolio. That's all you can do. Because if you're against something, why hold on it? But these are just the people we have within a society. Because why do you even need a license to grow 5 trees or 6 trees? This just don't make no sense. But yet when you have activities coming up, the high command gonna come out until you can have 5 joints or 4 joints for music festival. Whereas the high command still forget you have 14 and 15-year-old and you don't even have an ID to go into a place that have alcohol where adults have been partaking and having fun. So you have teenagers, underage, school children within a system where adults doing all kind of different stuff inside there. So the system itself is just upside down, inside out. left, right, center, all kind of how. So it's just not even cannabis
Banky,
alone. Yes, I.
yeah, see, we have many, and I must say though that over the years, all the protests and all the march and so on, I think they were very useful. You know, it wasn't designed to for them to respond to it basically, but it they did what they were supposed to do. They spread the word. You know, we got the publicity out there. We agitated because at the end of this marching and protesting was the court case, and that is exactly how it was designed to be. What our problem is, many times, enough support for all of these protests. And I guarantee you, if we call another protest tomorrow, all these people who don't get who get in large would still not come out and support the move. And that is one of our, because there's strength in numbers, you know, and basically the why started marching since about 2010. You know, we would have threatened the government with court and legal action since about 2015, 16. You know, and we haven't stopped. We've been going forward. What we need is the support from ones and ones. People in St. Vincent, the government, and say, listen, we are 200 strong. The growers, we've been going ganja for generations. We have used ganja for every single thing for generations, my whole family. So anything you're doing with this industry, you must compensate I and I. That it was the move that St. Vincent took, and the government had no choice but to respect it. Here in St. Nevis, what happened? When we tried that move, hardly anybody came forward apart from the Rastas.
Yes, sir. Listen, you're going in and out, you know. You there, IY? Yes. So this is one of the things that keep happening. You see, the police, them going to do their work. First thing they will say, well, there's another office. The law require you to have a license to go 5 trees or 6 trees or 10 trees or whatever it is. So the police going to use that part and say, well, it's still illegal in their eyes because you don't have the ID and all the different stuff. So if the government itself are those in authority, not going to tell them, well, put a moratorium and leave the herb alone and stop fighting or whatever. The police going to just enjoy going around, just going in the people's yard, whoever they choose to target and stuff like that. But they shouldn't be targeting anyone. Because they know they live within the society, what is going on. So it's just, and then they don't say, well, you charge people for drugs. By just putting that, and when you charge, you say you're charging them for drugs, which is the cannabis, when it contradicts itself, when you say it is still non-poisonous. So it's just all this back and forth. So the authority will, yes, go ahead.
One of the things that Sankofa pointed out, what they seek to do in these times, instead of coming and directly telling you that they're coming to look for cannabis, they try to add also the argument about drugs and guns and ammunition.
They've been doing that a long time, yes, and been doing that for years. They're not just a start at gun. They said a long time they're doing that.
Yes, but one of the things that happened as a result of that, Banky, they would have passed some legislation, I think, some time back that speaks to, you know, prior to that whatever it is that they would have passed, they would have had to present a warrant with the specifics in terms of what they're coming to search for. But then they made the argument that if they come into source for drugs and guns and ammunition, then they don't necessarily need a warrant, right? So they could just come in. So part of the argument that Sankofa presented was that if it was reality just for cannabis that they're coming for, then they would be breaching your position. But if they're putting in the guns and ammunition part of it, which they're using, and in reality, as Sankofa mentioned, they know what's coming on no gun thing and no ammunition thing, you know what I mean? But it is a way that they could utilize, weaponize it to some extent to harass Rastafari and the Rastafari community. And so that is part of the challenge that we have in that regard. So I just wanted to point out that in your discussion.
Of course, sure. Iroy still there?
Yeah.
Got Iroy.
You got the fully on
I'm
point.
here, but as usually cutting out on there.
Put that higher political thing.
Huh? Mr. Sankofa?
No, we didn't hear Sankofa. I didn't hear Sankofa because Iroy was talking at the same time.
I say it seems like I ready to start a political thing.
What you said that?
I like why I got the thing locked. At least the talking part of it. At least the talking part of it. I mean, intellectual.
Well, we're ancient people, the ancestors talking, and that's all it is.
Yeah, we got to do the research to speak to the people, so we got to let the people have that understanding, and realize too that we understand it too. So anyway, while Iroy is here, let me get in a little bit of Iroy before he probably cuts out again. So Iroy, go ahead. Based on what you would have just heard and anything else you want to add it.
Yeah, I was saying, well, I totally agree with you. The Babylon them coming now with a different kind of warrant, The warranting has on guns and all kind of things. And then once they come upon you, they confiscate what they say they want to confiscate. And that's why really and truly some of them just can't go to court with ganja case, But I think we need to be focusing some efforts on the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs, as you were talking about, your son. Our organization, we have been registered over a year. We haven't been given any kind of certificate, nothing at all. I must say, they haven't been harassing I on that level,
Not
but
at all.
we need to put some pressure on the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs to get that sacramental and personal part of it, get it some energy, because the medicinal part of it is pretty much, well, it's not really straightforward, but you can see that is guided by their rules and regulations. We have more opportunity to walk through the so-called sacramental and personal use. That is where we should be forcing the government to give I&I an economic opportunity. We cannot afford to go through the big money scheme as it is as individuals, but we should be able to take the herb, just like how you're taking your 2 banana tree in your backyard and sell it when you get a couple bunches. You don't have to open a whole banana industry. You know what I mean? And these are the kind of little privileges I think the poor man need. They have to be able to turn their blind eye, as we normally say.
So for the ID, why they pushing the ID and to pay whatever is $100 or $50 or $25 is to what? So they can keep a tab on who going 5 trees, 6 trees. What's the purpose of something that is non-poisonous? Why would you want who growing trees if that is your right? That may not understand. And the 5 trees thing, I think they need to appeal that too. They need to increase. You see, because yet then the police them still have their own thing in their head to tell you, well, this tree too big. Well, how you going to tell me how much you going which bit tree too big and which tree too small? These are the kind of ignorance. So the police themselves still need to be trained. And if a law is in place where you can have 5 trees or 6 trees, you can't tell a man a tree too big. But how you come to say a man tree too big? So this thing is just a joke. You see what I mean? We put things in place to be sophisticated and to be these luminaries and all kind of stuff, but yet because so many of them is benefiting, as Sankofa say, they don't take on the cases because they is getting work from the government and getting work from this, and they all within the same alliance. So our society is a mistaken society because cannabis have nothing to do with Rasta or anything like that. Is every citizen, every natives have the right to use it as a privacy because different ailments. When I did the cannabis education display at the agricultural open day last year, I was serving tea, and I serve in each day, serve over 200 cups of tea each day. The police then come for the tea, drink the tea the same way. The elderly come drink the tea. You'll be amazed. The people who come, all kind of people come bought the trees. In nobody under age 18 can don't sell stuff for people under age 18, and the adults, and within the society, different, you understand, ethnic group and stuff like that. So it's not just like it's just the local. Everybody on the island use herb. I always say, no, herb is like, you don't know who gay, you know, everybody gay, but they're not gay. But so everybody use herb, but then I use herb. But Mr. Say, I always use this analogy
Careful with the
because
statement,
that's how
boy.
it is. Yeah, because man married but a gay and got children and a gay. You understand? But they say, so you don't know, but they will hide. So that's what we show you. That's why you use it here. You don't know who use herb and you don't know who gay. And the reality, you see? So that's why I try to bring those two things together because this is society we live in. It's just like you say, if you have a march, nobody going to come out. And you guarantee that because they don't want to be seen to be affiliated by using herb because they might be a doctor, they might be a teacher, they might be.
Right,
you see what I mean? The society going to scan them. So those two things is taboo and it's put in. That's why I tell you to use those because this is the reality. You see? So I tend to use that as much as I can. I'm going to always use those two because that is how serious it is. You don't know who use herb. So and the thing about it, and so when you start a conversation and about herb, you realize those who feel away about the herb. So which means even though the government put these things in place or whatever, they're still fighting it because it's a belief system, how they think and how they look at things. Because we don't hear farmer premier of Navy's come on the radio and say when he was in university that he see a man a student run on the campus. And first thing he come and he say, oh, the weed got you so. And me say, well, just look at that. So the man could not have going through a mental breakdown. You see what I mean? Just anything else, you want just say, the weed got you go on. So these are the society we live in.
But you know, Banky, you know that situation, right?
Yes.
I remember when that gentleman got up in a town hall meeting and made those comments. But you know what's so sad about it? He made comments, but then we not had nobody else there to shut him up.
Yes.
Or to rebut.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There were 3 town hall meetings in St. Kitts, and we are waiting to hear when we're gonna have those in Nevis. Of course, the Nevis Island administration they're the ones who have to give the go. The authority is ready. No, you made a comment earlier. Huh?
I went to the Minister of Agriculture.
Well, the authority has reached out to Nevis. The authority is ready to come over and explain to the people what the industry is all about. Let's take for instance, there was nothing. There is nothing in the industry, right? You hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Go ahead. You're clear.
Yeah, there's nothing in the industry as it is now that would allow our herbalists, our traditional farmer, traditional herbalists, traditional healers, to prescribe cannabis. To do that, you have to be authorized medical doctor or pharmacist, and of course, you would have to get some level of training, some little course on specifically on cannabis. So what the system is actually saying is that we have used the knowledge of the herbal doctor for over the years. He's been doing this, using this herb. We are using this knowledge, making our drug, and then we are telling the herbal man, you're not even good enough to prescribe. You know, something like that is that's how it is right now. But we are
Yeah,
hoping that can change.
But how those who don't know nothing about the herb gonna prescribe it?
You see, because it is under the medicinal industry. You know,
But they're not about the
no,
herb.
what we are arguing for is for our herbal doctors to be able to do that. And this is something I think if we keep the pressure on, I think this is one of the changes that we would see coming forward. I think our herbal doctors and practitioners would be given the opportunity. The CMO actually recommended it because in the early days, the government set up a commission. They went around Sinkis Nevis, had a lot of town hall meetings. They had about 6 of them in Nevis. And they had town hall meetings and they had surveys and so on to come up with certain data that they provided to government for government to make their decision. Right? Within that commission, right, the CMO recommended that herbal doctors and herbal practitioners be given the opportunity to prescribe. Their prescription would not be as detailed in terms of 250 grams or so and so, 10% of this and 10% of that. It might be more general. Now, here is where Rastafari now would be seeking the opportunity, and not just Rasta, but the local man would seek the opportunity to have our herb being prescribed by our herbal practitioners. Because see, let's face it, the industry is there, and with or without the Sankofa case, the industry would have come. But it's a good thing that the Sankofa case was there to sort of put a little bit more pressure and I putting the industry together. Because the other islands didn't have this kind of pressure, they could do what they want. But a lot of them recognized Rastafari, but here they had no choice because the Sankofa case made that happen. So what I need to be doing is pressuring them so that I able to juggle with herb without having to go through the stringent rules and regulations as in the medicinal cannabis industry. Now, Banky, we mentioned the 5 plants. You hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the 5 plants. Now, you can have 5 plants, and your 5 plants can give you 5 pounds of herb. Now, all you have to do, take your pictures of your herb so that you can prove that your 5 pounds of herb came from your 5 trees. They don't have to be hung up there all the time. Obviously, you're going to pick them off and you're going to store them. But when Babylon come now, they're going to say you have a lot of herb and you intend to supply. But if you can prove that these came off of your 5 trees, there's no way that Babylon can take you to court for that and win that case.
Yeah, but Babylon
because you would be
that's what
the 20. Well, you see, if Babylon is waiting, Babylon is waiting to put their act together. That has nothing to do with it, you know, because we must recognize that the Drug Act was actually unconstitutional. So Sankofa case put it in perspective in saying, hey, these people can go the herb, you know. If you want to take 10 years or 20 years to come up with an amount and to come up with regulation, that's a your problem. But as it stands now, the people have a right to grow their herb. You need to work out your maths and come up with your amount. And so if some of us who are being harassed by police would take a stand and take them to court, sue them, you would see all of this nonsense back off. But we're being quiet about it. The police coming in, they take up. I mean, if you have, they might be able to push a case in saying, okay, we ain't fully come to the agreement yet, but we have in place where you can grow certain amounts, but already you've gone over the certain amount. And this is what they're using, right? They're using the fact that you're allowed to have your 5 trees, even though they ain't got no system yet for you to register and get your license for your 5 tree. You can have your 5 trees and Babylon can't touch them, or else you can push it to court. And maybe if we have 1 or 2 of these examples, we will see a change in the attitude of the law enforcers. And the first thing they're gonna tell you, they're following the law. You know? So we got to punch them where, as the Marley says, strike the hammer while the iron is hot. Punch them where it's weak.
Well, Ras Iroy, I love that suggestion in terms of taking the picture and showing that you would have gotten this quantity from your plants, because that was one of the questions that I had lined up. I was like, okay, I can grow 5 to 6 trees. I can have 56 grams on my person if I am to be walking in the public and so on. But how do one determine that the quantities one may find stored at my place is intended for supply? How do you figure out that it is intended to supply when in reality?
You see what Babylon is using now? Babylon looking for your scale and they're looking for your dime bags. Once you have dime bags and scales and so present, then they might be quicker to push the case intent to supply. So that is why I'm saying the advice is make sure you can prove. I mean, they're the ones who have to prove that you're guilty. But if you ain't got no dime bags around and you got your 2 pounds and you got your picture to show how your buds them were looking and when you were drying and when you reaping, Babylon wouldn't even take the chance and go to court. The 2 grams is the 2 ounces really for public.
Right.
Huh?
So that's what I'm saying. So the reason I was asking that is because, like I am saying, and I mean, I'm glad you also brought in the dime bag and scale and so on issue, because I am saying, as a person who make use of cannabis, I know that if I grow 5 trees, and even if I grow them at intervals where I might be harvesting 2 trees now, and then I'm harvesting another one, a month after, and then I harvest another one a month after, and another one a month after. Let's say I am a wonderful farmer, and I can get 2 pounds off of each tree. So that means when I harvest my first 2 trees, I'm going to get 4 pounds. Now, that's 4 pounds. I have to find a way to store it, because I can't just have it hang up in the air like that. After it is cured, you have to find a way to store it in order for you to use it. So then if you come as a police and you make me have it stored, whether it's in a bucket or in plastics or whatever it is, how can you determine that I have it with intent to supply, or I just have it to store? Because that is part of the way that it has to be stored for further use.
Yeah. Unless you got them done bag out, they can't prove that.
So I as you're saying, then one will have to have the guts to actually take them to court when you have cases like this, because I think these are some of the things, and I think maybe it's because of lack of knowledge, and it might be as a result of us not standing up and speaking out where some of these things are concerned. But I think we do, because as we look at the news media for this week, I think I would have seen 2 or 3 different arrests based on intent to supply. And I am really trying to figure out, as I'm saying, how could you come to that conclusion when I am growing 5 trees and I have the right to grow 5 trees? I think I heard the Premier spoke to that at some point, where the Premier said that the reality is they shouldn't be coming into anybody's house to look for cannabis. They shouldn't.
But the whole thing, they're going to say they're coming to look for something else.
Have the right to grow as much, but then, as we would have presented here, what they have done is, I guess, to breach that. Instead of coming and saying that they're coming to look for cannabis, they come on the premise of saying, or use the premise of saying that they're looking for guns and ammunition, and then try to put drugs in between.
But yes, if the Premier going to say they're not supposed to come in here and look for no cannabis, he's supposed to search out publicly, tell the police them load the cannabis.
He said it was public, because he said it on our program. It wasn't the interview that we had the last time, but it was the interview that we had prior, where he mentioned that.
Yeah, but give a directive. Well, let he tell the Prime Minister, them as a cabinet, they give a directive. Okay, don't make the sense come out and say police is supposed to do this and police is supposed to do that when they're not giving a directive. It's totally different.
This is part of what I challenged him with on the program last week, because I said, on Friday, I said to him that you guys, would speak, because even him would come out and say, well, he is for the full legalization and so on. But look at our reality. He's saying that, but he is the leader of Nevis, and a lot of what is happening on Sinkix. Sinkix would have had 5 split for music festival. Last year they had a area, a 420 zone.
But yes, and even that was foolishness. Them 5 split. You allow 2 ounces in public, he can't change that. A man might use chalice. What split you talk about?
Okay, hold on. I hear that argument, Iroy, but I was just trying to point out that those things happened in St. Kitts, but there was no similar scenario in Nevis for Culturama.
Okay,
so this is what I'm saying. This is the point I'm trying to make. Where the Premier is saying one thing, he's saying, we should be doing this, and he's for freeing up and so. But in terms of the examples that have been set, he and his minister has not made any effort in relation to show that, well, they're ready to do something for cannabis. So even though the minister himself, Mr. Evelyn Ayakaldin, said that they are waiting on Sinkits. But if he's waiting on Sinkits, Sinkits is showing that they are doing things. But the things that Sinkits are showing that they're doing, we are not seeing any of that happening in Nevis. As a matter of fact, nothing at all is happening in Nevis.
I'll tell you something on that though, yeah, son. I'll tell you something though, It wasn't the Cannabis Authority. It wasn't the Cannabis Authority that the police that came out and said, we're gonna allow you this and allow you that. The people were agitating. People wanted to open cannabis booths. People wanted to sell ganja. People wanted to do all kind of things. So they had to respond to the people. Now, I am not sure if anybody up here during Culturama would have gone to them and said, listen, I want to have a ganja lounge at Culturama. Because if they had done that, then the government would have had to respond. And I think you should have been able to get
anything like that. Once you ask for anything like that, they'll have to tell you you have to get permission from the Cannabis Authority.
Well, yes, and I'll tell you the problem now. Because you see music festival, I was planning to run ganja left, right, and center. But number one, we are not allowed to sell our sacramental ganja unless you come up with some kind of smart way of doing that. Because somebody could give you a donation. You could give somebody some supplement and they could give you a donation for your church. That is not really considered a sale. You could sell.
Yeah. So you can't sell the herb and you can't bag it out. So you tell me harvest my herb and me can't bag it out in the ounces. An ounce, I end up and got 50 ounces, 100 ounces.
Well, you
May I
see,
sell? You can't tell me how to cure my
ma-
herb and preserve my herb, because that's a perfect way to
that
preserve
is
the herb for a long period of time. Vacuum seal. So
bagging it
if
out.
people don't understand how herb is being have to be preserved, and they put it out in different parcels, quarter ounce, I say ounces and quarter pound and stuff like that. Because you're not gonna seal up a
Oh,
whole proponent of weed like us, so you're gonna break it down. Kind of want to open up the whole package
you
like that.
see, Banky, this piece of information you just gave me right there. This is something that I'm going to throw right back at the authority, because we would have
Cause that's how I
spoken on
use.
this topic,
That's how I seal it. That's how I do. That's how I do
right?
things. You see what I mean? So if
Even the
I ain't gonna put
scale,
up army
even the
herb.
scale,
You must get scale. You must get scale, Virgin. You must get scale. Me got kind of scale.
because
I probably can't go to me
if
make
they're
up
telling you
stupidness.
that you can't have more than 2 ounces in public, there's some way of weighing your herb. So when they meet you with a scale in your house, fine, you got to be allowed. Now they talk a lot about time bag, right? Me no hear them say much about the ounce and the 2 ounce and them kind of thing, because you're so right. You're not expected, or you don't have to, and it may not be the best way to store in a 5 pound bag or a 2 pound bag. Best to break it down. So you see,
Of
all of
course.
these things here are what could still create changes with the whole setup of the herb. And it's going to happen as we go along. We're going to find certain things now work. And so it has to go back to the table. That has been happening. No.
But that should make sense, because if you're talking about, even for them who are arguing, because remember, we must realize too that the argument that the government is making is from the medicinal cannabis side. And if you're going to argue from the medicinal cannabis side, then everything will have to be in dosage. And so if you come and you meet me with a scale, well, if I'm going to use it, I have to use it in dosage. So I'll have to put out my dosage. So if you want it, you don't want to seal up a 5 pound bag and then have to go and take out, a little bit out of a 5 pound bag every time. You might put a couple in a Ziploc bag, a smaller size Ziploc, or what they call dime bag or whatever it is, because that's
You
when
see,
you're going to use
if you're in the
it or whatever
industry
it is.
to sell, then that will be allowed. If you're part of the cannabis industry, that will be allowed. And while
So
we're in that, maybe I could make a little.
even if I'm not selling IUI, why can't I
Uh-huh.
have a scale at home to know how much quantity I'm using, to know, well, okay,
You should.
I'm smoking 14 grams a day, I'm smoking 5 grams in this. You should, so to use those as a yardstick to figure out that I am intending to supply, I don't think that's just strong enough argument to state that
Yeah.
because I have a scale and because I have Ziploc bags and I am free to grow 5 trees, where if I am a good grower, my 5 trees can maybe give me 10 pounds, and then you come in my house and meet 10 pounds, and you want to arrest me for, well, not arrest, maybe arrest too, and or take away my 10 pounds
Yeah, charge
because
and arrest. Yeah.
you're claiming that it is for intent to supply, when the reality is that is just maybe my stash to last me for the next 6 months until my next 5 trees grow. So these are
True.
things that I think the commission, and I think we need to have, we need to demand too that our elected officials, those who are putting these laws in place, come to us, because a lot of cases, select what's going on here now. We have you guys here, but we're not hearing from them. So we need to hear from them. And then we also maybe need to get an audience with the police to hear their side of the story as well. Because
Police not
I
come,
would have
yes,
been,
man. Police never come. You don't,
right, there's some who would
police,
come,
you
you
know,
know,
never have.
as much as you may think,
I don't
Banky,
be
there's some
that.
who would come.
I tell so many times you'll make one. Okay, I leave it up to you. I don't be. I leave it up to you. Get the police on
Yeah,
board.
well, I'll seek to get 1 or 2 police officers on the program to talk about it, because I
Yes.
think they're the ones who right now who are doing it. I was talking to one the other day, and he was trying to give me the rationale that the reality is, as you pointed out, Um, even though the government don't have certain things in place, like you can't go and get the license or whatever, for them, that's not necessarily their fault. They still have to uphold the law. And if this is what the law said, then I guess that's what they're going to work with. So that is why I'm saying, to some extent, now we got to call those who make the law and see what they can do, because as the government has three arms. You have the executive,
But then the
who
constitution still give you the use to use the cannabis as your supplement for your privacy. So it's the same as the country, the constitution rights for of its citizen. That's the whole point. The constitution is above the law.
the
So
Constitution is
this,
the law. The Constitution
well, that's
is
the
the
whole
law.
point. Well, that's the whole point, and nothing supersedes that. So that makes no sense. So all this back and forth, that's why how my brain work. If something makes no sense to me, and I know better, me not entertain it. Take it out, withdraw it, make it make sense. Okay, if them themselves
Yeah,
can
like,
explain it and have but yes, and let me get in some of them comments for before we continue. We can simply have a
yes.
lot of
Okay,
comments and we
so
can continue.
follow up here after Mighty Servant say one of the issue of calling the office of elected leaders, don't just call, but write. Have it documented. They can always say they didn't say, but by unrecorded voice conversations, but a letter is hard to refute. So yes, I do agree with that comment as well. Find somewhere, whether email or WhatsApp or whatever it is, so that you have a what we would call a paper trail in terms of being able to have their responses documented, or have them on a platform like this, where when they speak, people can eventually get sound bites and so on from it, and it could be recorded. The other comment says, the same mighty servant, he says, the reason the high command will say this is because they know how to manipulate the system. They understand how to manipulate the people into what they want as opposed to what they should have. Mighty servant also says, I will caution Iroy and Sankofa, albeit I don't think I have to, but will do so nonetheless. Don't let the cessation of harassment on your part today think they're not planning to harass you tomorrow. And then he says, Shabazz, you're hitting the nail on the head. The volume of cannabis users in St. Kitts and Nevis must be tapped into for lobbying support, or in my view, tapped out of association by the Rasses if there's no support. Herbal Medicated says, these people ain't understand the herb. Mighty Servant says the sale of a sacrament is business transaction that will attract taxes. The sharing of the sacrament is a totally different thing. Here the conversation has gone to transactional business in the sale. And he says again, now if one will sell, how will the buying public determine quantity and quality of what is being purchased? The focus for Rasses should be sacramental as opposed to sales. Well, okay, before Ras Iroy or Sankofa or Banky respond, that last comment, I think this is kind of part of, well, one of the arguments that I have, because I think one of the things is Rastafari was recognized as a religious or spiritual organization. And I think it is because of that premise why this argument is presented, where it is being allowed to use as sacrament. And as the brethren pointed out, sacrament is one thing, and if you're going to be selling, then it's gonna be like non-taxable, so to speak. And so that is where part of the problem, I guess, comes in. My issue is that for me, Rastafari, though it has its spiritual attributes, Rastafari is more a way of life, a spiritual African conscious culture with a spiritual nucleus. So yes, spirituality is a part of it, but one can be Rastafari without being a part of any religious organization, so to speak. Just like one can be Christian without being a part of any denomination, right? And I think herein lies part of the little issue that puts Rastafari in that kind of category where they're just deemed as spiritual, and as a result, that is kind of what is shutting them out of the opportunity for doing business, so to speak. I think that was an issue that was brought up by one of the brethren who came on the CARICOM mission, and he was one of the people who put together the Jamaican cannabis decriminalization. He was saying that we are to be careful on St. Kitts and Nevis that we don't walk down that same road where in Jamaica the Rastafari community was sort of left out of the opportunity to create revenue, serious revenue from the sales of cannabis. And I think that is part of the issue there. I don't know how you would want to address that, but I think that is just how I analyze it. It seems as if Iroy has broken off again, so until he comes back in, Banky, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yes, and I always say tourism is realistic.
Oh, me there.
Oh, you there? Go ahead.
Me there.
God, Iroy.
Yes, run back in.
Cannabis into three categories. One, the authority of the CMO, which was there for a long time. The sacramental and personal part of cannabis, which was brought about to the Sankofa case and the Constitution. And thirdly, the medicinal cannabis part of it, which came through the to the whole decriminalization and the industry moving forward. Now, what has happened is that, and Yason, as much as we don't like to hear it, Rastafari is very religious. It is not supposed to be termed as that. It is a spiritual way of life with a very heavy religious concept to it, with a deity and a godhead and the Psalms and the Bible and all these kind of things. And so it is the Constitution, however, doesn't limit it.
Iroy, drop out.
You there?
Yeah. Okay, we hear
The
you again now.
Constitution